Well, listen, we've got 20 minutes just to sort of really, I suppose, just dig in a little bit into your experiences of the market, why you got into this game, and to tell us a little bit more about your brands and so on. I mean, Steve, BYD made headlines as the largest EV manufacturer globally, and is it rude to say they sort of like appeared from nowhere a little bit? Well, not from nowhere, but kind of were under the radar a wee bit, and now so here you are, taking the market by storm. What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been an incredible journey. So we are only 30 years old. I think some of the things that we're most proud of is we're almost family owned. So our chairman started the business in 1995. And there's a museum in Shenzhen, which was our first office. And what I love about this museum is there's photos of everything that happened in the business. And actually, the two people that started the business, so as I said, our chairman, and then Stella Lee, who's just won World Car of the Year person, first female to do that, which is fantastic. They're in trade shows selling batteries. So their view was that the chairman's an engineer and a chief engineer, and he decided that he felt that he could build better batteries, because we're a battery company, really, a tech battery company. And what he did was he went out, found out a bit more about battery technology, and then started to build batteries. And actually, if you remember the old Nokia 3310s, well, Nokia was his first customer, and he sold lots of batteries to Nokia, and that's really how it developed. So I think for me, that's really what I think makes us very, very different, is that we're run by the same people that started the company all that time ago.
And so you sort of started with batteries and then built out, really?
Exactly. So in 2003, he said that he was going to enter into the car market. And actually, if you look back at some of our cars, they weren't particularly pretty in 2003. But again, sort of taking you back to the museum in Shenzhen, there's this room, and as you walk in, there's all these voices. And the voices are the journalists that said, "What? You're a battery company. Why are you starting a car company? You have no idea what you're doing." But the chairman's obsession with engineering, and actually we've got 120,000 engineers in the business. And actually, if you go to
wow,
you go to see the chairman, you'll always find him in the R&D department. He's absolutely obsessed with engineering, and it was that whole growth of saying, well, how can we do this differently? How can we grow batteries? And then effectively, then all the money that we've been spending on the last few years has all been in R&D development in terms of making the batteries safer, better, more sustainable.
It's absolutely fascinating. Tom, Farizon as well, a bit of a secret, well-kept secret from Geely Group. Certainly in this part of the world, and when it comes to light commercial vehicles, certainly. Tell us a little bit about the start here in the UK for you guys.
Yeah, not quite as old as BYD, but 2016, Farizon originated. You're right, they're commercial vehicle arm of the Geely Holding Group. And they, if you look a bit up until recently, concentrated purely on the domestic Chinese market. Did really, really well. In fact, if you look at each one of the competitive segments in which they compete, they lead. In fact, they're the only Chinese vehicle manufacturer since 2023 that have doubled their market share year on year for 3 consecutive years. So really, really successful within the domestic market. If you look at their product suite, Farizon's unique zero emission suite of products spans buses, HGVs, and commercial vans, LCVs. And also they are solely new energy drivetrains. That's all they do. So this is, they know their onions in this sector, and now in a position where want to expand out from China into the rest of the world.
And so what's the product that you've got here in the UK now?
SV. So
right.
It's the SV van. It's 3.5 ton LCV. It's, I guess, where it's nearly unique. Not too sure if it is at the minute, but certainly was. It's a born electric van. So it's been designed from the ground up to be an electric van. What that means is you've got weight saving, which means you can carry more, space saving, which means you can carry more, and it also helps clearly with performance and with range. We've got 8 different sizes with 3 different battery sizes as well within the range. So we think we've pretty much got something for you if you're a large fleet, or even if you're a individual single tradesperson.
So let's talk about why the UK market is attractive to both your companies. I mean, Tom, do you want to, Steve, sorry, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, it's a huge market, right? So there's 2 million cars sold annually in the market. I think, and I think we've got a history of the UK of adopting new car manufacturers. If we go back to, sort of 40, 50 years ago, we saw Japanese car manufacturers coming over in terms of Toyota, Lexus, Honda, and we saw that, over years they've developed. And then, you go back sort of 20 years ago. I remember when I was a regional manager and a long time ago. And I remember when Kia and Hyundai came over and, I remember the scrappage scheme, and you look at, I guess, the journey that those manufacturers have been in. And of course, they're a massive part of the landscape now. So actually, I think one of the real, popular reasons of why we're coming is actually the British public are completely open to trying new technologies, trying new products, and seeing where that does and how that fits in with their lifestyle. I think the other thing, in terms of the electrification journey that we're on, and we're again new energy vehicles, so it's all electric vehicles along with like plug-in hybrid, which we call DMI technology. I think on that journey that we're on is that there's a lot of opportunity in the UK to sort of continue into that market.
And for you too, it's Farizon.
Similar, I guess. We overtook Germany last year as the largest EV market in Europe, so it kind of makes sense that we would come into the UK first. I think if you look at the van market, we've probably been slower to adopt for various reasons. Probably the same obstacles that passenger cars have had, but probably without the same push. So we think, we're pretty certain that there's a huge growth opportunity there. In fact, looking at SMMT figures or projections for even this year, next year, you're looking at 60%, 60% growth just in our segment for each of those next 2 years. So we see that coupled with, I think fleet managers have a real desire for a cleaner fleet of vans for all sorts of reasons. But definitely there's an element of ESG a part of that, but also we've got a legislative EV mandate. So that's why we believe the UK is a great market for us.
I think it's just fascinating. Obviously, these incredibly established companies elsewhere, and that we're learning about here for some of us, for the first time. I mean, Steve, how would you sort of describe the difference, if you like, in terms of industrial operations? What have you witnessed and learnt and share?
Yeah, I think that's where we come into our real strength, really. And again, I'm probably taking you back on a journey, so it feels like you've been to the museum now in Shenzhen, so you never need to visit it. But actually, it's all about something called vertical integration, which you may or may not know about. But ultimately, where we operate, and I think, so you go into this big room, or another big room, and effectively you've got this whole car hanging up, and it's every piece of the car hanging up. And then you've got all of the parts round the room. And the fact is, we build every one of those parts. So the only thing that we buy externally is glass and tyres. So that really makes us nimble, because ultimately we're not beholden to any other suppliers, we're not beholden to pricing changes. So for me, that's a really, really big change in terms of how we can be really nimble in terms of driving that business forward and making the changes. So that for me is, I think, the opportunity we've got.
This is absolutely fascinating. And can I just ask, how long have you been working for Beattie?
November. So I'm very, very new. It feels like it's been, a couple of Novembers ago that I started. I mean, it's just brilliant. It's crazy. It is startup. It's very driven. And I think also working and bringing two cultures together is quite exciting and challenging all at the same time.
And what's the response you're getting now that you're here as sort of, UK sales and marketing director? What's the sort of response that you're getting on the ground here?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of things. So firstly, if I take the dealer network, we're very, very lucky. We've got a highly engaged dealer network. So we've got currently 22 franchise partners, but 60 sites. So we're sort of trying to grow with our franchise partners. And we've got a mixture of dealers from large groups, PLCs such as Virtue and so on and so forth. And we've also got these, what I call local heroes, so family-owned groups like DM Keith in Leeds that do an amazing job in terms of looking after that. But for me, I think I was sitting across from John Clark and Arnold Clark, and he said, this is your franchise, so what you want to do? And I said, no, it's not my franchise, it's our franchise. And for me, it's trying to get that part across, I think, with the network, is that we're all in this together. So I think we're quite lucky that we've got a highly engaged network. And then in terms, as I said, about the British public being open to new products and new new vehicles, new technology, I think that's working really, really well. I mean, it really helped when we sponsored the Euros, because then everyone thought, well, who's this company sponsoring the Euros? And our Google searches went incredibly high. Actually, we just beat that in terms of our Google searches. I'm not sure if anyone saw, but in January in the UK, we out-registered Tesla. So we sold more cars in January in the UK than Tesla. It's only 1 month though. They're absolutely coming flying back in February and March. So I can only celebrate it for 1 month, but I've sent it straight to Stella. So look at that. So it's really, really going well. And we've got some massive aspirations for this year. So in terms of products, we've got 4 products. 3 are electric, 1 is a plug-in hybrid. Next week, we're launching the C-Line 7. Very interesting names we have. The C-Line 7, which is another electric SUV, which sort of will probably play really well into the fleet market and that sort of higher retail market. And then we've got 3 to 4 more vehicles that I'll be launching. And one of them is a city car, which we're really, really excited about. I think the gentleman said about more small EVs. Well, one's coming in a couple of months.
Now, I want to turn to Farizon again now, Tom. And I'm told a lot is made of your drive-by-wire system, and I want to hear more.
Yeah, well, you may need to know more once I finish telling you as well, because I'm limited. What I can tell you is our advanced drive-by-wire system. I guess if you look at, and this won't be BYD, but if you look at most tech that passenger car manufacturers introduce, there's an element of it that's tech for the sake of tech. It doesn't actually have a material impact on people's lives when you look at it from a user standpoint. But the advanced drive-by-wire, we think, is a piece of tech within our vans that actually does benefit both the fleet operator and also the user. The fleet operator, in that, again, it's lower, it's lighter. So back to those benefits earlier of being born electric, it means that you can carry more, you can drive further. And from a user point of view, it gives you all the benefits of faster response times, shorter braking distances, more accurate steering. So it really benefits both sides. That coupled with, double wishbone front suspension. We were driving it in Millbrook 2 weeks ago. In fact, we had a bunch of people. We did over 1,000 miles at Millbrook 2 weeks ago. And the feedback from everybody universally was, outside of the standard spec, which includes cooled seats, heated steering wheel, heated windscreen, adaptive cruise control in a van. But their feedback was, look, this drives like a car with a huge boot. And it really does. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And I should ask you the same question I asked to Steve, which is, how long have you been working with the company?
Me, January.
But they're like the greybeards here, aren't they?
But we only came into the UK in November, so yeah, we're a startup. And again, I think to Steve's point, that there's a real advantage to being a startup. You're not bogged down by legacy systems. You're not bogged down by legacy bureaucracy that means it's really slow to adapt and change your business. I think we're in a real fortunate position in that we've got, in our case with Jameel Motors, we've got a real pedigree of distribution, retail and after sales. We're 3 years older than Porsche cars, to put some perspective on it. And then with Farizon, I think we've got the best van in the UK at the moment from an EV standpoint. And again, we're backed by well over 2,000 R&D engineers. There's over 2,800 patents against SV, the vast majority of which are in that new energy field. So we've got huge benefits, and actually our length of time in the UK is probably one of them in that regard.
Going back to BYD, production operations moving to Hungary, I understand, or going to be starting in Hungary. Yep. So what's the sort of the plan there? What's the strategy? Is there any more announcements you're going to be making about operations in Europe?
Yeah, so...
Or here, indeed.
Yeah, so I guess answering that in a few ways. So firstly, you're right, there is a plant being built in Hungary that should be operational by the end of the year. There's plans that there'll be a plant in Turkey as well, so we're looking at that as well. I guess in terms of what's happening in the UK, I think the investment is in right-hand drive models. You know, as we said, and I heard today that we need more sustainable cars. We need more cars that are affordable to the public. So I guess BYD's investment in terms of the first investment into the UK is basically investment in GB type approval, in right-hand drive vehicles, and making it simple for people to get that. I think, and again, like I think some of the colleagues earlier in the manufacturers talking about the incentives that are on board. So, for example, you can get into our entry-level car for 269 a month and 269 deposit. So it's really, really affordable car in what we're doing. In terms of the head office, so we've got now 100 staff. So I guess there's another investment there. We're looking to grow as we move on. But yeah, who knows?
We'll come back next year. So we'll find out. We'll keep our eyes peeled. And Tom, do you know if there are any, what those sort of expansion plans for the UK are from Farizon's point of view?
From Farizon's point of view, I think at the moment we're going to concentrate with SV.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of applications for that. There's a huge scope for customization as well in terms of the body and adaptation, of which we will support locally. I think from a Jameel Motors point of view, without doubt now we represent 20 brands across Africa, Australia, Asia, Europe, and particularly the UK is a big point for us. So without doubt we'll be looking to expand our brand portfolio in the UK.
Fantastic. It's a great education, this chat. Thank you so much. Listen, questions from the audience. We've got a few minutes. We've got, did I see a hand at the back there? Yes, right in the far corner. So if you could just say who you are, please. Thank you.
Hi there, Kat Dow from BBC Top Gear. Could you give me an idea of the differences in culture between the Chinese and the British drivers' desire or appetite for tech and the fantastic futuristic things you're putting into your cars, please?
Do you both want to take that?
For me.
I don't know. I'll put my tuppence worth.
I mean, I guess it's an interesting question because, of course, not being in the Chinese market all of the time, I probably don't understand exactly what they want. But what I can say is in terms of what we do differently with the vehicles. So when I've been in China, the tech is almost the same. Of course, we have to change it so we can understand it, and there's very, very different things. But for me, it's about all being really, really simple to use. So, for example, in our car, so if you wanted to borrow the car, which you're more than welcome to.
It's so kind.
And if we weren't together, which of course we won't be after this, but I could text you the car key. So I would just text you the car key and you could get straight in the car and drive off. So I think the tech that we all want is just things being easier. And that's what I think we're trying to do at BYD. And I think that comes across very much from our colleagues in China, because everything is like 100 miles an hour and they want everything done quickly, which is making things simpler and easier, which I think is what we're trying to do here.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, I think if your question was kind of aimed at the difference between UK or European drivers and Chinese in terms of their desire for tech, I think one of the byproducts of tech within EV particularly is it's removed the sort of brand legacy loyalty that probably people had in the past. People's desire for tech, I think there is definitely an association now with high quality tech and Chinese brands kind of are synonymous. So therefore, legacy German owners are moving across to China. So I think it's allowing people the facility to be able to transition over to Chinese EVs and away from probably what their brand loyalty was for the last 10 years with an ICE product that was probably lower tech.
Any more questions? Yes, the gentleman here near the aisle.
Hello, Oliver Rowe from Imprimatur. We heard in the manufacturing and supply chain discussion an interesting comment from Sean from Green Lithium that the UK has 2 decades of catching up to do versus China. Just interested in your perspectives as Brits, I think, working for your new employers. Do you have any hope that we can catch up, and what would you advise needs to happen given your Chinese insights?
Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, for me, I think it's all about the consumer. and ultimately want everybody, at the same level as quickly as possible, because then the consumer has more choice. And that's ultimately going to help us drive more electric vehicles and get more vehicles on the road. As I said, I think a fundamental difference between BYD and some other car manufacturers is we've got 120,000 engineers. Our obsession with development, our obsession with engineering. The engineering team, they put out 32 patents a day. And for me, that is potentially the difference between where we are and potentially some other car manufacturers are. It's that obsession with engineering.
So that sounds a little bit like a no to me. Anyway, I don't know, Tom.
No, we're out of time. I'll leave it with you.
I have to say, I think these two guys, as two new new members of their new companies, they've done very well diplomatically, actually. It's been really great to hear about your experiences in the companies. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for Tom and Steve. Thank you.